Oh my deity, it's ActRaiser. A lot of what people say about ActRaiser is wrong. They say it's half God sim, half action platformer, but more than the sum of its parts. This is incorrect, so let's blow the fog away. If I were better at copywriting, I'd be able to tease this revelation out over the course of the video, but that's not really how I write these things. So instead, I'm going to shoot my load on your butt cheeks straight away. ActRaiser is not part God sim and part action platformer, it's a God sim. Both parts are a God sim. The game has two different styles of play, but in both of them, you're God. That's the whole point. The game opens with an angel addressing you, the deity, explaining that the world has descended into chaos during your slumber. You, the deity, are never shown on screen. You don't have a face or body. Your power is to manipulate events in the earthly realm via a controller. The angel communicates between you and your subjects, exactly like angels do in the Christian mythology. The avatar you control in the platforming sections isn't you, it's a statue, a lifeless effigy abandoned in the wilderness, a vestige of the civilization which once worshipped you. And you temporarily animate these statues with divine power that descends from the heavens. When evil is cleansed from the land, it goes back to being a statue, and the divine power ascends. You inhabited it, and then you left it standing in the spot where evil was vanquished. In most games, the player identifies with their on-screen avatar. When their character dies, the player says, "I died." Very uncommon for people to think they actually died, of course. But in ActRaiser, the game is constantly reminding you that the avatar is just a vessel. When your human subjects want to communicate with you, the angel wrests control away, delivers the message on their behalf, and then you visit the temple to receive the prayers of your earthly flock. The separation between player and avatar isn't a design quirk, it's the entire philosophical premise. You're not playing as a hero, you are a god controlling your avatars. Now, this is a Japanese game about God and Satan. Those are the actual names of the protagonist and antagonist in the Japanese version. For the Western release, Nintendo's content policies required the religious references to be scrubbed. So God became the Master, and Satan became Tanzra. But strip away the localization and it's unambiguously a cosmic battle between the Christian God and the devil. The thing is, it was made by people whose cultural relationship with Christianity is quite impressionistic. It's a bit like when Westerners try to understand Buddhism.
So the Dalai Lama walks into a pizza shop.
Cosa shop?
Pizza?
Pizza shop, yes.
Yeah, pizza shop. And says, "Can you make me one with everything?"
What's that? What's that? Oh, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Can you make me one with everything?
Japan has a unique religious landscape. The two dominant traditions are Shinto, the indigenous religion, which venerates the natural world, and Buddhism, which arrived from India via China. These traditions coexist comfortably and often blend together. It's really common for Japanese people to have a Shinto wedding and a Buddhist funeral, because Buddhism promises reincarnation, which is particularly useful when you're dead. Shinto concerns itself with the living world. Rivers, mountains, forests, each are inhabited by a spirit, a kami. There is no single supreme deity who governs all the others. There's a complicated, decentralized negotiation between forces. You can feel this worldview in other Japanese games. The Zelda series, for example, expresses nature through powerful spiritual beings. And Link and Zelda are reincarnated across centuries, locked in an endless battle with the forces of darkness. That's a fundamentally Buddhist and Shinto structure dressed in Tolkien clothing. ActRaiser, by contrast, is an attempt to work with the Christian framework of one supreme God versus one supreme evil, but filtered through the lens of people who don't have an intuitive feel for it. And the result is something genuinely interesting. The idea of God possessing a statue has a real theological texture to it. Holy statues in Christianity have been reported to weep or bleed. The developer, Quintet, took that image and extended it to its logical conclusion. What if the statue just came to life and walked around and fought things? I don't think that's irreverence or blasphemy. It's just a different culture asking what the mythology implies and following that thread. The ActRaiser soundtrack was composed by Yuzo Koshiro, who at the time, at the age of 22, was already respected but not yet legendary. I also want to mention that his sister, Ayano Koshiro, was the art designer for ActRaiser. Yuzo Koshiro was one of the few composers who could get magic out of the Mega Drive sound chip. His soundtracks for Shinobi and Streets of Rage are so badass. I listen to this track from Streets of Rage all the time. My favourite time to listen to it is when I'm driving my sports car to the final confrontation with my crime boss nemesis. What he did with the SNES sound chip on this game is kind of hard to explain to someone who hasn't heard it. The action stages have this propulsive, orchestral drive to them. The simulation music is pastoral and contemplative. The boss themes are operatic. Together they create a tonal range that the SNES almost wasn't supposed to be capable of, especially not so soon after launch. The reason this is important is that Nobuo Uematsu, the composer of the Final Fantasy series, has said that Koshiro's work on ActRaiser pushed him to try harder. When he heard the soundtrack to ActRaiser and how it sounded like a symphony, with distinct, identifiable instruments. He literally shit out of his ears, and he decided, not literally, and he decided he had to rework his compositions for Final Fantasy IV. So without ActRaiser, we wouldn't have had bangers like this in Final Fantasy VI. But this isn't a video about Final Fantasy VI. I've heard game critics say the music to ActRaiser heavily references John Williams' Star Wars score, which I can kind of hear. But to me, some of the tracks reminded me more of the score to Conan the Barbarian. Maybe it's just because the statue avatar holds his sword in a similar way, like a subconscious type of thing.
You know, like a subconscious type of thing.
Oh yeah, that can happen.
The two modes of play feed into each other in a way that most discussions of the game underplay. In the action stages, you descend into a corrupted region of the world as the animated statue, clear out the monsters, and defeat the boss. Then the angel sections begin. You hover over the landscape as a Cupid-like cherub and guide your subjects. Clear land so they can build settlements and grow. You cast spells like lightning and rain which clear obstructions. The angel acts as your intermediary. This is your power, but you communicate with the angel how you would like your power to be used. What's clever is that these two modes create a rhythm of violence and healing. You don't just conquer and move on. You conquer, and then you have to govern and enable. Your people grow crops, they build increasingly sophisticated homes, they pray, their population grows, which grants you more health points for the action stages. You don't have traditional experience points in ActRaiser, instead your total population size determines your level. The angel sections aren't a break from the game, it's the game reflecting on what your divine power is actually for. The beginning of each angel phase is usually the most stressful part. You're clearing demons that spawn endlessly in the wilderness, your population is small, and things feel precarious. You feel like you have to quickly eradicate the demons before they destroy a house or kidnap your population. But once you start sealing some of the demon generators, the settlement starts breathing on its own. There's something genuinely satisfying about watching the land fill up. Fields appearing where there was forest, roads connecting houses, people getting on with their lives because you cleared the evil away. Like this guy who is always taking his dog for a walk. Or maybe it's a horse. Maybe he's the village lunatic who takes his horse for walks like it's a dog. The best strategy I've found for the bosses is to be cautious at first while you learn the patterns, and then, once you have more remaining health than them, just absolutely lay into them. ActRaiser sold well at the time, but mostly in Japan. It came out on 16th of December 1990 in Japan, which was less than a month after the console launched, and it made Quintet's reputation. But it didn't get the recognition it deserved in the West at the time, only retrospectively. Everyone who played it loved it, but not enough people did. Part of the reason for this is the way it was misunderstood in the West. The Western box art described it as an action and simulation game. That framing positioned it as a hybrid, a game trying to do two things at once, rather than a game with a unified vision. The Japanese box art is more accurate. The Japanese text, written in katakana, which is the phonetic script used for foreign loanwords, describes it as an active and creative game. That's closer to the spirit. It's not two genres bolted together, it's one idea expressed in two modes. I can see how this got mistranslated. Active and creative can be interpreted as action and simulation, but the katakana for action games is akusshon geimu, and for simulation game it's simulation geimu. So I don't think they meant it to be interpreted as part action and part simulation. The Japanese box art has a montage of a bunch of the baddies and the statue not yet come to life. It also has pyramids. The Western box art just has pyramids, which are entangled by a flurry of lightning bolts. Lightning bolts give you a sense of divine power striking out and asserting themselves on the earthly realm, like Zeus. But the pyramids are important too because pyramids are not the focus of the game. There are pyramids, but they're only one of the action stages and a brief part of the story. The reason they used an image like this is because of what pyramids make people think of. Pyramids are mysterious. They're so ridiculously ancient, and we will never fully understand them. The ancient Egyptian civilization which built these things was one of the centers of the world for thousands of years. In the 19th century, European archaeologists visited the pyramids and walked around going, "What the fuck is this? Who built all of this? What does it mean?" But the pyramids are so old that by the time Cleopatra was around, they were already thousands of years old, and the records of who built them and why had already been lost. So you had ancient Egyptian archaeologists in Cleopatra's time visiting the pyramids and going, "What the fuck is all this? Who built all of this? What does it mean?" We used to think they were tombs, but now we're not sure. They could be monuments to the pharaohs or some kind of civic center, like a place where astronomy or other sciences were conducted. I even heard some, what I assume to be crackpot theories, that they were ancient power plants, and this is why they were encased in limestone. And the reason they gave for this theory was that one of the ancient reliefs depicts what looks like dudes carrying fluorescent light bulbs. Even though they don't really look that much like fluorescent light bulbs, and why would there be a giant at one end and a couple of midgets holding up other parts of it? But the truth is the pyramids are unknowable, inscrutable, and that's what makes them so fascinating and romantic. So anytime you see pyramids, you know there's going to be secrets, mystery, adventure, and deadly traps. That's just what they're shorthand for. ActRaiser is a game that tries to make you feel what it feels like to be God in a world that needs you. Not an action hero with special powers. God, distant and mediated, acting through vessels and intermediaries, watching your subjects build lives in the land you've cleared for them. But unlike other God sims like Populous or Black and White, you don't maintain a god's eye view the whole time. Sometimes you need to get down there at eye level and slash some ghouls. It was made by Japanese developers bringing their own cultural and spiritual framework to a mythology they understood from the outside. It has one of the finest soundtracks on the console, and it's been misunderstood since the day it launched, because the marketing couldn't find the words for what it actually was. The words are God Sim, both parts, the whole thing. Unfortunately, it's not currently available on any modern platforms, probably due to complicated and boring rights issues resulting from Quintet no longer existing, and some of its assets being owned by various disparate parties. And further, unfortunately, because it has that lethal combination of being incredibly well regarded and selling very badly, original copies sell for stupid money these days. But hearken unto me, for I bringeth glad tidings. That means, listen to this, dipshit. There's a remake called ActRaiser Renaissance, which I would recommend if you don't have access to the original. They added a lot of new elements which I think work really well. My only real complaint is that I didn't much care for the Donkey Kong Country style pre-rendered graphics. The original's graphics were kind of functional, as you'd expect from a game that came out less than a month after the console. But they're a perfect fit for the game. The manual for the original has screenshots of icons from the game, and you can see scan lines on the photos. There's something in that. These days, the supercomputer you keep in your pocket can take high-definition photos at a moment's notice, and you can take screenshots of almost anything on screen. But back in the early 90s, even companies like Quintet, which worked with cutting-edge technology, couldn't do that. The best they could do was get close to a CRT TV, take a photo and then blow that photo up for the manual. This game was designed for a certain type of TV in a certain type of living room, at this certain moment in history. But still, the remake is a fine game, and worth checking out. It came out very recently, like 6 months ago or something. What? 5 years ago? Bleh, dead from old age. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. The next video in the SNES GEMS series is going to be Gradius 3. If you found this interesting, please consider liking and subscribing.